The Nowata Methodist Church is happy to produce a lot of different content for the edification of Christ's church throughout the world. This daily segment that you're listening to right now corresponds with the Daily Bible Reading Challenge, which is hosted by Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. If you want to download the list of readings that they publish for yourself or learn more about this challenge, this initiative, go to BibleReading.ChristKirk.com. I'm Jeffrey Rickman. I'm the pastor here in Nowata, and I read from the Berean Standard Bible, which you can also find at Berean.Bible. Consider subscribing to this podcast to be a part of this daily effort to grow in familiarity with and love of God's holy word. Let's dive in for today. Hey there, I'm Jeffrey Rickman, and this is a program I've been doing, reading through the Bible in conjunction with the Bible Reading Challenge hosted by Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. We've started Exodus now after completing Genesis and the Gospel of John and Galatians. And so we've done the first 6 chapters. Now we're going to do the following 7 in Exodus. So I'd invite you to be in a prayerful spirit as we tend upon God's word together. Here we go. Exodus chapter 7. The Lord answered Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I will multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and by mighty acts of judgment I will bring the divisions of my people, the Israelites, out of the land of Egypt. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out from among them." So Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded them. Moses was 83 years old, and Aaron was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When Pharaoh tells you, 'Perform a miracle,' you are to say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent.'" So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord had commanded. Aaron threw his staff down before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh called the wise men and sorcerers and magicians of Egypt, and they also did the same things by their magic arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a serpent. But Aaron's staff swallowed up the other staffs. Still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as you see him walking out to the water. Wait on the bank of the Nile to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake. Then say to him, 'The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to tell you, let my people go so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But you have not listened until now. This is what the Lord says, by this you will know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff in my hand I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will turn to blood. The fish in the Nile will die, the river will stink, and the Egyptians will be unable to drink its water.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'Tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their rivers and canals and ponds and reservoirs, that they may become blood. There will be blood throughout the land of Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and stone.' Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. In the presence of Pharaoh and his officials, Aaron raised the staff and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water was turned to blood. The fish in the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians could not drink its water, and there was blood throughout the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt did the same things by their magic arts. So Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead, Pharaoh turned around, went into his palace, and did not take any of this to heart. So all the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink because they could not drink the water from the river. And 7 full days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Exodus chapter 8. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him that this is what the Lord says. Let my people go, so that they may worship me. But if you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs. The Nile will teem with frogs, and they will come into your palace, and up to your bedroom, and onto your bed, into the houses of your officials and your people, and into the ovens and kneading bowls. The frogs will come up on you and your people and all your officials." And the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers and canals and ponds, and cause the frogs to come up onto the land of Egypt." So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. But the magicians did the same thing by their magic arts, and they also brought frogs up onto the land of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Pray to the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people. Then I will let your people go, that they may sacrifice to the Lord." Moses said to Pharaoh, "You may have the honor over me. When shall I pray for you and your officials and your people that the frogs, except for those in the Nile, may be taken away from you and your houses?" "Tomorrow," Pharaoh answered. "May it be as you say," Moses replied, "so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will depart from you and your houses and your officials and your people. They will remain only in the Nile." After Moses and Aaron had left Pharaoh, Moses cried out to the Lord for help with the frogs that he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did as Moses requested, and the frogs in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields died. They were piled into countless heaps, and there was a terrible stench in the land. When Pharaoh saw that there was relief, however, he hardened his heart and would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the earth, that it may turn into swarms of gnats throughout the land of Egypt." This they did, and when Aaron stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the earth, gnats came upon man and beast. All the dust of the earth turned into gnats throughout the land of Egypt. The magicians tried to produce gnats using their magic arts, but they could not, and the gnats remained on man and beast. "This is the finger of God," the magicians said to Pharaoh. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning, and when Pharaoh goes out to the water, stand before him and tell him that this is what the Lord says. Let my people go so that they may worship me. But if you will not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies upon you and your officials and your people and your houses. The houses of the Egyptians and even the ground where they stand will be full of flies. But on that day I will give special treatment to the land of Goshen, where my people live, so no swarms of flies will be found there. In this way you will know that I, the Lord, am in the land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people. This sign will take place tomorrow." And the Lord did so. Thick swarms of flies poured into Pharaoh's palace and into the houses of his officials. Throughout Egypt, the land was ruined by swarms of flies. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your God within this land." But Moses replied, "It would not be right to do that, because the sacrifices we offered to the Lord our God would be detestable to the Egyptians. If we offer sacrifices that are detestable before the Egyptians, will they not stone us? We must make a 3-day journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he commands us." Pharaoh answered, "I will let you go and sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, but you must not go very far. Now pray for me." As soon as I leave you, Moses said, I will pray to the Lord so that tomorrow the swarms of flies will depart from Pharaoh and his officials and his people. But Pharaoh must not act deceitfully again by refusing to let the people go and sacrifice to the Lord. Then Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord did as Moses requested. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Not one fly remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time as well, and he would not let the people go. Exodus chapter 9. Then the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh and tell him that this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, Let my people go, so that they may worship me. But if you continue to restrain them and refuse to let them go, then the hand of the Lord will bring a severe plague on your livestock in the field, on your donkeys, horses, camels, herds, and flocks. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that no animal belonging to the Israelites will die. The Lord set a time, saying, Tomorrow, and the Lord will do this in the land. And the next day the Lord did just that. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one animal belonging to the Israelites died. Pharaoh sent officials and found that none of the livestock of the Israelites had died, but Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Take handfuls of soot from the furnace. In the sight of Pharaoh, Moses is to toss it into the air. It will become fine dust over all the land of Egypt, and festering boils will break out on man and beast throughout the land. So they took soot from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. Moses tossed it into the air, and festering boils broke out on man and beast. The magicians could not stand before Moses because the boils had broken out on them and on all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said to Moses. Then the Lord said to Moses, Get up early in the morning, stand before Pharaoh, and tell him that this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, Let my people go, so that they may worship me. Otherwise I will send all my plagues against you and your officials and your people, so you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by this time I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with a plague to wipe you off the earth. But I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might display my power to you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Still, you lord it over my people and do not allow them to go. Behold, at this time tomorrow I will rain down the worst hail that has ever fallen on Egypt, from the day it was founded until now. So give orders now to shelter your livestock and everything you have in the field. Every man or beast that remains in the field and is not brought inside will die when the hail comes down upon them. Those among Pharaoh's officials who feared the word of the Lord hurried to bring their servants and livestock to shelter. But those who disregarded the word of the Lord left their servants and livestock in the field. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand toward heaven, so that hail may fall on the land of Egypt, on man and beast and every plant of the field throughout the land of Egypt. So Moses stretched out his staff toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning struck the earth. So the Lord rained down hail upon the land of Egypt. The hail fell, and the lightning continued flashing through it. The hail was so severe that nothing like it had ever been seen in all the land of Egypt from the time it became a nation. Throughout the land of Egypt, the hail struck down everything in the field, both man and beast. It beat down every plant of the field and stripped every tree. The only place where it did not hail was in the land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he said. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Pray to the Lord, for there has been enough of God's thunder and hail. I will let you go. You do not need to stay any longer. Moses said to him, When I have left the city, I will spread out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, so that you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But as for you and your officials, I know that you still do not fear the Lord our God. Now the flax and barley were destroyed, since the barley was ripe and the flax was in bloom, but the wheat and spelt were not destroyed because they are late crops. Then Moses departed from Pharaoh, went out of the city, and spread out his hands to the Lord. The thunder and hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured down on the land. When Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had ceased, he sinned again and hardened his heart, he and his officials. So Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had said through Moses. Exodus 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, that I may perform these miraculous signs of mine among them, and that you may tell your children and grandchildren how severely I dealt with the Egyptians when I performed miraculous signs among them, so that all of you may know that I am the Lord." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and told him, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourselves before me? Let my people go so that they may worship me. But if you refuse to let my people go, I will bring locusts into your territory tomorrow. They will cover the face of the land so that no one can see it. They will devour whatever is left after the hail and eat every tree that grows in your fields. They will fill your houses and the houses of all your officials and every Egyptian, something neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen since the day they came into this land." Then Moses turned and left Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's officials asked him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is in ruins?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "Go, worship the Lord your God," he said. "But who exactly will be going?" "We will go with our young and old," Moses replied. "We will go with our sons and daughters and with our flocks and herds, for we must hold a feast to the Lord." Then Pharaoh told them, "May the Lord be with you if I ever let you go with your little ones. Clearly you are bent on evil." "No, only the men may go and worship the Lord, since that is what you've been requesting." And Moses and Aaron were driven from Pharaoh's presence. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt, so that the locusts may swarm over it and devour every plant in the land, everything that hail has left behind." So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and throughout that day and night the Lord sent an east wind across the land. By morning the east wind had brought the locusts. The locusts swarmed across the land and settled over the entire territory of Egypt. Never before had there been so many locusts, and never again will there be. They covered the face of all the land until it was black, and they consumed all the plants on the ground and all the fruit on the trees that the hail had left behind. Nothing green was left on any tree or plant in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now please forgive my sin once more and appeal to the Lord your God that he may remove this death from me." So Moses left Pharaoh's presence and appealed to the Lord. And the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind that carried off the locusts and blew them into the Red Sea. Not a single locust remained anywhere in Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward heaven so that darkness may spread over the land of Egypt, a palpable darkness." So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and total darkness covered all the land of Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else, and for 3 days no one left his place, yet all the Israelites had light in their dwellings. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go worship the Lord. Even your little ones may go with you. Only your flocks and herds must stay behind." But Moses replied, "You must also provide us with sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Even our livestock must go with us. Not a hoof will be left behind, for we will need some of them to worship the Lord our God, and we will not know how we are to worship the Lord until we arrive." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was unwilling to let them go. "Depart from me," Pharaoh said to Moses. "Make sure you never see my face again, for on that day you see my face, you will die." "As you say," Moses replied, "I will never see your face again." Exodus chapter 11. Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring upon Pharaoh and Egypt one more plague. After that, he will allow you to leave this place, and when he lets you go, he will drive you out completely. Now announce to the people that men and women alike should ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold." And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moses declared, "This is what the Lord says. About midnight I will go throughout Egypt, and every firstborn son in the land of Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne to the firstborn of the servant girl behind the handmill, as well as the firstborn of all the cattle. Then a great cry will go out over all the land of Egypt. Such an outcry has never been heard before and will never be heard again. But among all the Israelites, not even a dog will snarl at man or beast. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. And all these officials of yours will come and bow before me, saying, 'Go, you and all the people who follow you.' After that I will depart." And hot with anger, Moses left Pharaoh's presence. The Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt." Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the Israelites go out of his land. Exodus 12. Now the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month is the beginning of months for you. It shall be the first month of your year. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man must select a lamb for his family, one per household. If the household is too small for a whole lamb, they are to share with the nearest neighbor based on the number of people and apportion the lamb accordingly. Your lamb must be unblemished, an unblemished year-old male, and you may take it from the sheep or the goats. You must keep it until the 14th day of the month, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel will slaughter the animals at twilight. They are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. They are to eat the meat that night, roasted over the fire, along with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of the meat raw or cooked in boiling water, but only roasted over the fire, its head and legs and inner parts. Do not leave any of it until morning. Before the morning, you must burn up any part that is left over. This is how you are to eat it. You must be fully dressed for travel with your staff, with your sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand. You are to eat in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On that night I will strike through the land of Egypt. I will pass through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn male, both man and beast, and I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood on the houses where you are staying will distinguish them. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. No plague will fall on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. And this day will be a memorial for you, and you are to celebrate it as a feast to the Lord, as a permanent statute for the generations to come. For 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you are to remove the leaven from your houses. Whoever eats anything unleavened from the first day through the seventh must be cut off from Israel. On the first day you are to hold a sacred assembly, and another on the seventh day. You must not do any work on those days except to prepare the meals. That is all you may do. So you are to keep the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your divisions out of the land of Egypt. You must keep this day as a permanent statute for the generations to come. In the first month you are to eat unleavened bread from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. For 7 days there must be no leaven found in your houses. If anyone eats something leavened, that person, whether a foreigner or native of the land, must be cut off from the congregation of Israel. You are not to eat anything leavened. Eat unleavened bread in all your homes. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and told them, "Go at once and select for yourselves a lamb for each family and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a cluster of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and brush the blood on the top and sides of the door frame. None of you shall go out the door of his house until morning. When the Lord passes through to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and sides of the door frame and will pass over that doorway. So he will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses and strike you down. And you are to keep this command as a permanent statute for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised, you are to keep this service. When your children ask you, 'What does this service mean to you?' you are to reply, 'It is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when he struck down the Egyptians and spared our homes.' Then the people bowed down and worshipped. And the Israelites went and did just what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. Now at midnight, the Lord struck down every firstborn male in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon, as well as all the firstborn among the livestock. During the night Pharaoh got up, he and all his officials and all the Egyptians, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was no house without someone dead. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron by night and said, 'Get up, leave my people, both you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as well, just as you have said, and depart. And bless me also.' And in order to send them out of the land quickly, the Egyptians urged the people on, for otherwise, they said, 'We're all going to die.' So the people took their dough before it was leavened, carrying it on their shoulders in kneading bowls wrapped in clothing. Furthermore, the Israelites acted on Moses' word and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. And the Lord gave the people such favor in the sight of the Egyptians that they granted their request. In this way they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth with about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children, and a mixed multitude also went up with them along the great droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. Since their dough had no leaven, the people baked what they had brought out of Egypt into unleavened loaves. For when they had been driven out of Egypt, they could not delay and had not prepared any provisions for themselves. Now the duration of the Israelites' stay in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions went out of the land of Egypt. Because the Lord kept a vigil that night to bring them out of the land of Egypt, this same night is to be a vigil to the Lord, to be observed by all the Israelites for the generations to come. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, 'This is the statute of the Passover. No foreigner is to eat it, but any slave who has been purchased may eat of it after you have circumcised him. A temporary resident or hired hand shall not eat the Passover. It must be eaten inside one house. You are not to take any of the meat outside the house, and you may not break any of the bones. The whole congregation of Israel must celebrate it. If a foreigner resides with you and wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover, All the males in the household must be circumcised. Then he may come near to celebrate it, and he shall be like a native in the land. But no uncircumcised man may eat of it. The same law shall apply to both the native and the foreigner who resides among you. Then all the Israelites did this. They did just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. And on that very day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt by their divisions. Exodus 13. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male. The firstborn from every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, both of man and beast." So Moses told the people, "Remember this day, the day you came out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, for the Lord brought you out of it by the strength of his hand, and nothing leavened shall be eaten. Today, in the month of Abib, you are leaving. And when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the land he swore to your fathers that he would give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall keep this service in this month. For 7 days you are to eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten during those 7 days. Nothing leavened may be found among you, nor shall leaven be found anywhere within your borders. And on that day you are to explain to your son, 'This is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt.' It shall be a sign for you on your hand and a reminder on your forehead that the law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For with a mighty hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. Therefore you shall keep this statute at the appointed time year after year. And after the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you as he swore to you and your fathers, you are to present to the Lord the firstborn male of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. You must redeem every firstborn donkey with a lamb, and if you do not redeem it, you are to break its neck. And every firstborn of your sons you must redeem. In the future, when your son asks you, 'What does this mean?' you are to tell him, 'With a mighty hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both of man and beast. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the firstborn male of every womb, but I redeem all the firstborn of my sons. So it shall serve as a sign on your hand and a symbol of on your forehead, for with a mighty hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt.' When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them along the road through the land of the Philistines, though it was shorter, for God said if the people face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea, and the Israelites left the land of Egypt arrayed for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear a solemn oath when he said, 'God will surely attend to you, and then you must carry my bones with you from this place.' They set out from Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them in a pillar of cloud to guide their way by day, and in a pillar of fire to give them light by night, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place before the people." This is the word of the Lord. That concludes our time together. I hope it's been a blessing to you. Next week, we pick up with more adventure. Not next week, tomorrow. Join me tomorrow.